Hi, welcome to Our Android Week. I'm Dan McDermott. Joining me from New York is Dr. Alan Furstenberg. Welcome, Alan. Always a pleasure, sir.
Hey, Dan.
Okay. He's being nice to me so far. I don't. Something's wrong. It's that New York water. Okay, so,
Evening, young.
huh? The night
The
is young.
evening, young.
Indeed. Okay, so looking at our Flipboard magazine, which is the Our Android Week Flipboard magazine. I see. We're just going to go through these fairly quickly. I got about 50 minutes max. Okay, Meerkat has launched an Android version of its app. This is similar to Periscope. It's a live streaming thing, and I guess that's becoming a thing. And like I said when we first discussed this on our Friday show, Google Plus Week, um, I think it was on that show, but that basically it's like the media has suddenly, it's like suddenly live streaming has been invented.
Yeah, I mean, what have we been doing for 3.5 years?
You know, but
With
anyway, it's super simple. All you do um, is you launch Meerkat. You optionally type, "I'm canoeing. I'm at a conference. Whatever you're gonna stream. I'm cooking pizza. Whatever it is," and then you hit go. That's it. And then initially, if let's say Alan and I follow each other on Twitter, then if I'm looking at my stream, it will let me know that Alan is streaming on Meerkat. But then Twitter took those things away because unbeknownst to Meerkat, Twitter had just purchased a competitive product called Periscope. And so then they said, well, you can't, do certain things, and then Twitter launched Periscope probably sooner than they had anticipated because of the Meerkat thing. And Meerkat, I guess, was at South by Southwest or one of the conferences. It was all the rage, one of those things. But I guess you haven't used it, Alan. But I played with it, but the perishable content thing's a deal killer for me. Why go through the trouble? I'd rather just record it. Plus, it's pretty low resolution video, and it forces you to go portrait, not landscape, which they said they're just conceding defeat. That's what all the kids want to do. Any thoughts? Are you going to be meerkatting anytime soon?
Unlikely.
I could see it being neat at like I/O.
Yeah, and I'll probably be trying to do some live streaming at I/O, but the bandwidth there is going to suck. So, and Meerkat doesn't have a glass client, so why the hell would I be interested? But I think the concept is valid. I think it's here to stay, and I'd like to know what we've been doing for the past 3.5 years. But if it wasn't live streaming, but hey, glad to see other people joining the party. Maybe that means that Hangouts will improve.
And yeah, but I some of the early versions of the show are gone forever because I was using Justin TV initially. Then I switched to Ustream. Then I switched to Hangouts when they were released. I think you were on my show prior to Google Plus Week, right?
One or two when it was still the McDermott report. Yeah.
So those shows are gone because when Justin TV, without warning, closed, they said all your content's deleted. Been nice knowing you. And Ustream switched to plans where only if you pay will it archive. So all those are probably gone.
See, and here's why YouTube, I think, will have it when they get into this market. And it's not going to be if, it's going to be when. When they get into the market, they're going to be able to say, look, hey, used to be you'd record a show and upload it to YouTube. Now just stream it live, and it's up to you whether you want to make it private afterwards, whether you want to permit people to it, or whether you just want to make it public right after it goes live.
A lot of people will heavily edit stuff, and a lot of the editing skills are so good that is one of the things that distinguishes some of these YouTube stars. I think,
and here's the brilliant thing about it. As with everything else on YouTube, it's totally up to you. You do what you want to do.
yeah, and now they've developed tools. It's still more cumbersome than the legacy way of doing it, where you would shoot, locally record, edit, make it tight, add your music, and upload it. They've added some tools where you can just like you could stream it live, and you could make it unlisted or private, and then edit it and save a new version that's edited, and then make that public. So you can do it all as basically cloud-based video production and editing and distribution, which is great, but it's still not. You would not get the quality as if you had recorded with a good 1080p camera or 4K camera locally, and edited it. But still, if for someone's on a budget, or like if you're at I/O and you just want to quickly do something and throw it up there and then maybe edit it later, or you've got that option. So anyway, all right. So I see Google has added some custom voice actions. Um,
Well, it's even more clever than that. It's not only that it's custom voice actions, it's that it's now a bunch of partner apps that have these custom voice actions. So now some features that you used to have in Android Wear, and more particularly with Glass, you're now seeing those same features come into Google Voice Command. And it's a great move. I think the implementation's a little kludgy, and certainly the design is a little kludgy, but I think this is a great move for Google because it's truly getting closer to the point where you no longer have to think about, okay, what app am I going to be running to do this? You're now issuing commands. Or what I used to tell people when we were talking about designing for Glass is think actions. Think about what you want to do. Don't think about the program that's doing it.
Also, it's great for hands-free, which means for driving and for accessibility, to be able to be driving your car. Okay, Google, listen to NPR, or okay, Google, scan this receipt for this Walmart receipt, and it will open the Walmart app and do your savings catcher. Those are a couple of the examples, and also
that
like
one makes me pretty stupid, but other than that,
and it said that. They've said if you're an app developer, it's only working with apps that they've set it up to work with.
Yeah,
right partner now at this point.
Apps, but it's well positioned to work with any apps that start registering voice commands.
And just like so, it'll eventually be just like Android Wear compatibility. Basically, anybody can create a component that would function on a Wear device. It just has to be approved and put in the App Store, and it works, right? It's not like you have to be on, inside the loop. So cool, check that out. And I apologize to any of our viewers whose phones I caused to suddenly come on and cause an error message. You don't have the NPR or the Walmart app. Okay, so this one I tried to understand. Google's Dart language on Android aims for Java-free 120 frames per second apps. I guess this is an internal programming language that they created to deal with some of the frustrations that they'd had internally with Java. And so they created Dart, and I think it's open source, so it's not exclusive to Google, right? You could use this?
Well, you got at least one thing right in your comment. Otherwise, you're completely wrong.
It is, in fact, named Dart. Other than that.
It is named Dart, and it was developed by Google. Other than that, you're not even close.
Well, the article said it was an in-house project, and
okay, so you read that one line correctly.
And that they said that they were frustrated with some incompatibility with Java. They couldn't do certain things, or they weren't happy with the way Java
No, that's not
performed.
what it said. But a nice try there, Dan.
I'll find the line while you talk. So school us on this. Tell us what the deal is here.
So Dart was actually a language that's now been out for, I believe, about a year and a half. It was developed not as a response to Java, but as a response to JavaScript, which is the predominant language that in fact, every browser now runs in. It's essentially the de facto programming language for the internet right now. It's got a lot of issues. And a lot of people have tried to come up with solutions to these issues, and Google was one of them. So the team that made Google's JavaScript runtime, called the V8 runtime, making it at the time, and probably still, one of the fastest engines that runs JavaScript, went on to develop this engine called Dart. So it's based on many of the same things that JavaScript is based on, but adds a few additional features to it. And for a while, it looked like Google was pushing this as a future replacement for JavaScript, or something that would run in parallel with JavaScript. They've changed paths on that a little bit, so they've backed away from that. But this comes out with them saying, look, instead of just running inside a web browser, we're going to make it so that apps as a whole can just run on Android in Dart. And to do that, they need to do some very, very significant things, and one of which is make sure that it's fast. So when they're talking 120 frames per second, they're basically saying that they need to get it essentially twice as fast as most Android apps run these days. And that's no small achievement.
Is 60 the typical max for an app?
Well, let's put it this way: the human eye needs at least 30 before it's 24 or 30 before it starts seeing the jumping. Movies run at 30 frames per second in the U.S.
24.
It's either 24 or 30, depending on whether you're in the U.S. or Europe.
Okay.
60.
Question. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go
Well,
ahead.
okay. So I always heard that the reason they chose 24 frames per second when movies first started was that the I'd heard it was because that's the slowest you could have audio functioning, but that maybe wouldn't make sense because the movies existed a long time before there was audio in them.
Right.
Was it because the human eye needs 24 to before
it has to do with the human eye's processing of it.
So it was the cheapest. I mean, they wanted to go with the lowest cost because I guess film was extraordinarily expensive. It still is, really. So
Correct.
okay. So anyway, so what are most devices capable of, Max?
I honestly don't know these days what devices typically run at. I do know that devices that have high-end graphics processing do run at 120 frames per second these days. Normally, when you're talking stuff that's being generated for HD TV, you're trying to get those much higher frame rates.
I think mainly didn't I think what was it? One of the Hobbit movies or one of the something I think was at 48 frames per second. He did it double the normal 24, and I think people got headaches in the movie theater. That was a complaint, which is weird because television is 60. Most video is 60, right?
No.
Or it's 30.
No. Most video is 30.
Okay. Or 29.97 or whatever it is. And I think the main reason for 120 frames per second for most shooters isn't to actually use that. It's so that they can slow stuff down without loss. They can do a ballerina tossing something or whatever, and then they can slow it down. And like sports, they'll shoot it in 120 and 4K. They've been doing that for years, and that's how they get those. They can zoom in and do slow motion without a loss of quality. They can really zoom in, right? Because
some of it also
4K.
are the techniques that are used to do 3D. Essentially mean you need twice as many frames per second because you've got 2 frames, one showing the left eye, then one showing the right eye, and it flips between the two of them. So you need twice as many frames per second just to show the same footage, except because you need to show it twice.
Oh, so like if you were watching Avatar, that might have been in 120, but each eye is only seeing every other one.
Yes.
Okay.
And what some of the 3D glasses do is they only let you see half of the frames in each eye. And the other frame just doesn't show up at all.
Because it filters out.
Right.
Cool. Okay. All right, so next is I see looking at our little Flipboard magazine, which Alan hates. LG's Urbane.
I hope to get rid of it by next week.
A couple watches came out. The first one here is the LG Urbane. It's $350, nice looking watch, and I think it's the first one to have the newest version of Wear. At least
that's correct.
And then the other one is this expensive
Tag Heuer.
Yeah, I was gonna wait for you to pronounce it because I think
your Swiss German isn't up to snuff.
Correct. Okay, 2 more watches came out. So one's $1,400, the fancy one.
Yeah. So basically, I think the Tag Heuer one in particular are the Switch watchmakers realizing, hey, wait a minute, if we don't jump on this this smartwatch bandwagon, we're going to be even further behind than when digital watches started pushing us out. So this is a survival move for them. And especially since Apple is trying to take a swipe at the luxury watch market, Android Wear is a perfect opportunity for them.
I think it's, as I said multiple times, I think it's a risky move for them because you're going to piss people off if this thing's obsolete in
Well, here's the thing: it's
9
not a
months.
risky move. It's not a risky move for them because they're not cutting their top end, their top end lines. They're just adding to it a bottom level um, digital device as well, and they're doing it to combat Apple.
And for them, so 1400 is a pretty low end price point for them
I believe it is the cheapest Tag Hero you can buy.
because I guess for that reason because this has a shelf life.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so let's go to this other topic, which is kind of related to, not really, but kind of Microsoft slams Android updates. I guess it was, well, of course they're going to slam them. They're always slamming Google. That's what they do.
Yeah, it's particularly hysterical that Microsoft, who has had multiple problems in the past getting updates out for their own operating system, is slamming Google for having problems getting updates out to its operating system. Mind you, the slam is justified. Google has done a really piss poor job at this, and Google deserves to be smacked across the face hard and frequently. But having it come from Microsoft is hysterical.
I'm going to do, I'll just read the key quote here. He said, this is Windows chief Terry Myerson. He said, Google ships a big pile of code with no commitment to update your device. And then everyone laughs. Google takes no responsibility to update customer devices and refuses to take responsibility to update their devices, leaving end users and businesses increasingly exposed every day they use an Android device. So he's referring to security vulnerabilities.
Yeah, and he's correct. And as we've covered on this show multiple times, that's exactly Google's attitude.
And you saying that it's hypocritical because Microsoft does the same thing? Like, I'm still running XP.
Well,
one
I'm
of my
saying it's
computers.
hypocritical because Microsoft, not even just XP, I mean, let's see. There was no upgrade path from Windows Mobile 7 to Windows Mobile 8. Users who are on Windows RT has no upgrade path to Windows 10. Microsoft has screwed over their customers multiple times when it comes to upgrades, and there's no indication about how they're going to solve the upgrade problem on Windows 10 even.
Aren't they aren't their updates far apart calendar-wise compared to Android updates? They're
Sure, but
mobile?
we're talking security updates.
Okay.
I mean, so yeah, we are talking their big updates are certainly further apart. But even when it comes to the fact that Google's got at least 3 major security holes that we've talked about on this show in code that occupies something like 50% of the market. That's unconscionable. And Google has done nothing to even patch that. Their solution is, just upgrade to the latest version of Android, which you can't do.
Well, let's bring in the next. I'm skipping the security one just briefly, but this other story which deals with Microsoft, it says Windows 10 can run reworked Android and iOS apps. So they talk. I guess Windows 10 is going to be mobile and desktop and tablet and phone, or all one version of Windows. And
you forgot glasses. Yes, Windows 10. It's in theory one version of Windows 10 that runs everywhere. We'll see what the reality is about whether that's really one version or multiple versions that are tuned.
well,
But in theory, they can all run what they refer to as Windows 10 universal apps.
so you could write one app, and it would theoretically work on everything.
Theoretically, yes.
Which would be great because that's finally they can get people to write apps that will work on Windows Phone, which they've been reluctant to do, but everyone's writing stuff for Windows Desktop because that's still the big player.
Well, here's the thing. Not everyone is writing for Windows Desktop these days. Everyone is writing for iOS these days, which is why they've now created a way for you to write an iOS app and port it to Windows, and write Android apps and port them to Windows.
So when you say you can write the Windows Universal apps, is it really that, or is it more like a better comparison would be with where it's not like your game automatically works on a Wear device. you have to add the Wear components.
No, no, that's exactly what they're saying it's going to be like. That's why they call them universal apps.
Hmm.
Basically, the theory is, just like right now, if you write an app for either iOS or Android, you can write it so that it runs on a smartphone or a tablet. It'll run on both of these environments. What Microsoft is saying, hey, it can run on a smartphone, a tablet, a desktop, and a pair of eyeglasses, whatever.
Well, I would think that's the way we should be going.
You do?
Don't you? I don't know. You're a developer.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, in some sense, I do, yes. But what experience has shown us from Android developers and iOS developers who have actually tried to write apps for both a phone and a tablet is that it's really hard to do. So yes, while your code might run fine, it provides a really poor user experience.
You're talking about from a phone to a tablet?
Yes.
Yeah,
And
because I've
that's
seen
just a
some
phone to a
things.
tablet.
Some things look like crap on the. They're just a larger. It's all pixelated on the tablet. It's all
It's not
just.
just it looks like crap. It works like crap. Now imagine that you're trying to write an application that needs to both run in an environment that has a keyboard and a mouse, an environment that has an on-screen keyboard and touch commands, and an environment that has no keyboard, no mouse, and watches your hands move around.
Okay.
I'm not saying it's not impossible, because I think it's a really good idea. What I'm saying is it's a lot tougher than developers think. And I think a lot of developers are going to say, oh, look, I write it once, it runs everywhere. And the reality is going to be somewhat different.
It's a lot like watching this program for viewers. They can't see Alan's mouse or keyboard, but they see his hands move around a lot. Okay. That wasn't very funny. The truth about smartphone apps that secretly connect to user tracking ad sites. This is not at all surprising to me, but just, once in a while we should bring this up. Reminder, I got 20 minutes. I got to roll out of here. So this...
Well, this one takes about 30 seconds because it basically says that although most smartphone apps only connect to a handful of sites, there are some that connect to a few thousand sites, which is just unconscionably stupid.
So every time you run... I think the one was 2000. It was the Music EQ. So you run this thing. Theoretically, it would always be on, I assume, because it's something to EQ your music, which I think is stupid. But anyway, to have on a phone, they do pretty good out of the box without any of that crap. And then it's connecting to 2,000 sites. At some point, this interferes with your data cap, I would think. It's just text, so like, a 30-second YouTube video would probably be more than that would.
Well, what they're pulling down are advertisements in most cases, probably.
Okay. All right, and then we see a new Domino's app. I want to just ask you, really this is an Oleg question. I got a friend of mine who's opening a restaurant, and he's going to contemplate delivery at some point and maybe online ordering. And is there like a de facto, the one that everyone's using, like Salesforce is the leader for every company that sells stuff? Do you have any idea?
Nope, no clue.
If anyone has a suggestion what the go-to thing is, if you this guy's opened a restaurant in Front Royal, the Oak Grill, I think it's going to be called, but I'm just trying to figure out what he could use. But I see Domino's, they've got this thing where it's going to, you can track how your pizza, like if it's in the oven, that kind of thing already. But when it's in the car coming to your house, it's a dark zone, they said. So now it's going to tell you, it's going to GPS track the pizza. It's going to tell you how fast the driver is going. It's going to tell you what music the driver is listening to, and a little biographical information, maybe the driver's favorite sport teams, things like that, which I guess is to get you to tip more. So we're seeing brilliant innovation in apps like with Uber and Lyft, these things where they're just, apps are becoming so useful and they're so popular. We're seeing pizza companies up their game. Any thoughts on this? I think this is great. Someone needs to come up with something like this for independent restaurants. Maybe, I'm sure there probably are, but I don't know which one to use or which one to recommend to this guy. But little mom and pop shops don't have a lot of money. They may not have a lot of technical expertise, but they want to be able to compete with Domino's, and they want sexy things like this, and they don't know which one to get, and so they just get overwhelmed. It's like a menu with too many things. You just don't even go to the restaurant because it's overwhelming. You don't make the wrong choice. Anything on this, Alan?
No.
Okay. All right, so next is
I think that's it.
is that it? 5 we did.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's it.
So coming up Friday, and this is really interesting. There was a leak about this a few days ago, maybe a week ago, but there's this new thing called Collections. I have not played with it today, although I've seen when I shared this post, I had an option, and it worked on my page too. So tell us what this is, but also tell me. Use me as an example because I post political stuff, personal
Sure,
funny
Dan,
things,
sure.
and the shows. So how would I use this? How is this different from having a page for certain content? And where does this fit in?
Sure. So collections are basically a way to create categories for your posts in its most simplest form. I played with it fairly extensively today, and it does some nifty stuff. It's in some ways it's a little bit like Pinterest, kind of bolted onto the side of Google+. So now what you can do is you can create these collections, and your collections can be public, which are just like public posts, private, which are essentially collections that you're just sharing with yourself, like bookmarks, or kind of a middle ground, so that you can create a collection that only goes to a particular circle or several circles. And those collections work just like you're posting to those circles. What this does is it kind of changes the nature of how people can interact with your posts. So now they're adding you to a circle is a normal way to do it. They follow Dan McDermott. Now what they can do is when they add you to a circle by default, they're also adding most of your default collections. If they then choose to do so, they can either turn notifications on for just one or two collections, or unfollow a collection because they think they get tired of you posting about it. So in your case, for example, you will probably have a collection for this show, our Android Week. You'll have a collection for our Friday night show, Google Plus Week. In our Android Week, you'll be posting when this show goes live. In the Google Plus Week collection, you'll post when that one goes live. You'll probably have a collection for politics and a collection for things my dad says, because you post those every so often. If I'm totally not interested in your politics, because trust me, Dan,
You're not interested in my politics.
Not even close. I would unfollow your politics collection. Whereas since I am interested in getting notifications and alerts when you post about Google Plus Week, I would turn notifications on for that collection.
Now I'm looking. I'm going to go to your public profile, and I don't see how can I?
If you go to my public profile, there should be a tab that says collections.
Oh, okay. All right. So I'm clicking there, and I see you have quite a few. Wow, you have been busy today. Okay, so
How many do I have? I only have like 6 or so, right?
13.
I have that many. Which ones do you see? I don't think I had 13. I didn't think I had 13 public ones anyway.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm not. Okay, I'm just looking. I'm sorry. I'm looking at it as me, so maybe I can see other stuff that you share with your circles.
No, go ahead. I don't think I've permitted any privately to you, so don't worry.
Okay, so I see IO a couple years. I see Curmudgeon. Now, okay, so it says I'm following all these.
Right.
By default.
Since you're following me, and I've set all of these collections to be followed by default, you're automatically following posts that I make to them. I could create one, for example, that would require you to specifically follow it.
Okay, so that could be useful for Pam, for some of her posts.
Exactly.
Okay, so I'm going to click here. It says you're like ponderings. It says I'm following, so I'm going to click on that. Oh, I just click and I can say follow.
Right. If you click on the follow or following button, it changes depending on whether you're already following it or whether you can click on that to follow it. And this is actually one of the problems I have with collections right now.
That's kludgy.
Is some of the user interface is complicated.
It should say following or not following. Not follow or following.
Well, but the fact is that it's also a button, and it's not obvious that it's a button.
Correct. Because the little finger thing comes up for the entire thing.
If you click on the title, I believe, it will actually go into the collection itself.
Yeah, I see that. So like, let's go to your Curmudgeon's Corner. And there.
And,
Can
and
you-
what's the first post on Curmudgeon's Corner?
I hate Dan so bad. I just want to slap
No.
him. The collections. Oh, it's you're ranting about collections. That's great.
I'm ranting about collections.
Now it would be neat. Well, let me see here. Can you put? Oh my goodness, you can have a separate cover photo for each collection. That's
exactly.
neat. So I could put the Android logo, like for my use case, I could have the Android and the Google Plus Week logo, because some people are interested in one and not the other.
Right.
I could have like a
now
news
we-
collection and then rants. Cool.
Sure. And when I suggested earlier that we'd be replacing Flipboard, this is what we're going to be replacing Flipboard with.
You know, that's a, so how does it work on mobile? If I'm at mobile and I want to post something to Google Plus, I can easily post it instead of just public. I can add it to a collection.
Exactly. Now it comes
iOS
up with the
and
last.
Android.
Yep. It works on Android. It doesn't yet work on iOS. But that's presumably because they didn't want it leaking on iOS beforehand, and getting things through Apple is impossible.
Oh, so it's probably in the process.
Right. It's probably in the pipeline.
What's the normal
But-
length of time for that?
But, anywhere from a couple of days to a couple of years.
Especially
But
when it's
if
Google.
But if I want to create a new post, all I need to, on Android, I just need to start a new post. So you can, I don't know how well you can see it here. It's already come up with the default one I have of my Ponderings one. I can tap that. It gives me a choice of the last couple of collections that I've used. If that's not one that I want to use, I can click on more. And there's a selection. I just select which collection I want to use.
So it's interesting. The URL for this, looking it back up here, like I'm at your Curmudgeon's Corner. It's not associated with you. It's not plus.google.com/you/collection/whatever. It's which would be neat. It would be neat if it was, but I guess they want a permanent URL because you might change the name of your thing and you'd want the old URL to work.
Yeah, but we've had that issue already. That's one of the odd things about this, is that it seems like instead of they just kind of stuck it on the side. And because if you look at each post in the collection, each post still has your user ID in it.
Yeah, this is really just an indexing tag thing.
But it's not. And that's the odd part about it. It's not just an indexing tag, because you can only have a post can only belong in one collection at a time. You can't tag it, so if you have a post about cats and dogs, you can't put it in your cat collection and your dog collection. You got to pick one or the other. And it's an odd sort of restriction. But it's similar to the restriction that's in place for communities, which is there for other reasons. So it's not entirely clear to me why they made that choice. There are a number of decisions they made that I think are bad decisions, and that's one of them. And if you look at my Curmudgeon's Corner post on this, you'll see most of the other reasons. For the record, however, I actually do have a positive post about collections as well. That's in my Ponderings collection.
Okay. All right. Any other thoughts?
Nope. Just keep an eye on Dan. We'll be actually creating some of these collections for him coming up in the next few days. So hopefully they'll be there by Friday when we'll announce exactly how Dan will be using collections for these shows.
These are not collaborative, right? Like a page could be. These are still your private
Well,
personal
but
thing.
pages can have collections.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're right. Okay. But now my pages basically only post one thing, the show. So.
Yeah, well.
All right, so folks, okay, we have two programs, this program and Google Plus Week. Google Plus Week is every Friday at 8:30 Eastern, 5:30 Pacific, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Pacific on Friday. That's Google Plus Week, where we talk about all things Google and Google Plus. And I'll have some more time to play with collections between now and then, and we'll go do another run through on that with some more information. And this program is every Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, unless it's at a different time. This is the Android program. So we thank you for watching, and until next week, until next week, have an awesome Android week. Thanks.